everyone, and welcome to National Treasure Hunt, the podcast where the secret lies not only with Charlotte, but also with your co-hosts. I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Emily.
and we are here with finally our first National Treasure in Real Life, or NTIRL, bonus episode of Season 12. I'm so sorry it took this long, you guys.
Yeah, we've just had a lot of cool stuff.
Admittedly, we'll give you a little behind the scenes. We were supposed to record this episode literally 3 months ago. And
It's been on the docket.
yeah, because normally we do one IRL in the first half of the season and then the second in the latter half of the season. But between like life happening and then also bonus episodes that we've gotten for you guys and hopefully you've enjoyed, we've had to push this back a little. So sorry, but we hope you're okay with it.
Yeah, we're here now. That's the important thing.
So, as a reminder, NTIRL is basically where, by your popular demand, we are reviewing treasure hunting docuseries that you may or may not have heard of before and telling you how they relate to National Treasure and whether or not you should watch them. But before we dive into this week's selection, Emily, would you like to tell everyone where to find us?
Yes. Please find us on both X and Instagram at NT on Podcast. Also on YouTube. I need to
Mm-hmm.
emphasize that. On YouTube at NT on Podcast, okay?
Please.
We are also available at nthonpodcast.com, where you can find info about our books and any upcoming events. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/nthonpodcast as well.
Speaking of those events, I do want to point out really quickly that as of the time this episode will finally reach your ears, we do have a heist night coming up as part of our America 250 tour. We will be delivering heist night at the Jamestown settlement. Yes, that historic one, like from your history class in US History 1 in Williamsburg, Virginia. That heist night is happening April 11th. Coming very quickly after that is our spring National Treasure Hunt tour in Washington, D.C., happening Saturday, April 25th. And then a few weeks after that, we have our first ever Philadelphia National Treasure Hunt tour on Saturday, May 9th. Why are we telling you about these three things right now? Because you can get tickets or register for all of them right now at the link in our show notes.
Do it for all or one or two. As
Why
many as
not?
you care to, but make it at least one.
I was gonna say, honestly, this might be one of the only times this year, since we do have so many events happening, where all three events are completely distinct, right? Like Heist Night,
Mm,
DC tour, Philly tour, all are different. You could literally come to all three and get totally different experiences.
it's very true. So take your opportunity.
Seriously. Um, okay, you guys. Today on NTIRL, we are going to be watching and reviewing and then rating The Curse of Oak Island Seasons 1 and 2. Now, I know we've been saying a lot this season that we've been doing things per your request. This is no exception. This is one of the first docuseries that was brought to our attention from you all on social media as soon as we started doing NTIRL. So I am so glad we are finally getting to watch it today. What we're going to do is we will start with some basic information on the series at hand, including where to watch if you haven't watched and would like to. Then we'll go through our reviews, kind of a loose discussion, would you say?
Yeah, loose.
Loose, yeah. It's not super planned or
It's not
anything.
tight.
Well,
It's loose.
it's yep. And then we'll close things out with both Emily and myself giving a rating for these seasons and telling you whether or not you should consider watching yourself. So, shall we dive in?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. So, The Curse of Oak Island, y'all. This is a History Channel series that first premiered more than a decade ago in January of 2014. You guys,
We were in college.
we were literally such babies.
We were
Um,
living together.
we were, and National Treasure Hunt wasn't even a shadow of an idea.
Mm-mm.
And something I find really impressive about this show, Em, is that there are 13 seasons, more than 250 episodes and counting. So this is clearly done well enough that people are watching, that they're continuing to make the show. If you want to watch, you can watch it on history.com, Tubi, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and others. But again, today we're going to focus on season 1, which is 5 episodes, the pilot season, always shorter. And then season 2, which is 10 episodes. If you're thinking about how long of a time commitment this is for you guys, it's built for an hour runtime on TV, so each episode is about 40-ish minutes.
Mhm. And, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that because there are 13 seasons and counting, they don't find the treasure in the first season or 2 or 13.
What this means is we could, if you guys want it, have 6 episodes of NTIRL on this show. If you're feeling attached to these characters and this story, you're gonna have to tell us. Like we said, fairly popular if it's been renewed for this long. It does have a 6.8 out of 10 series rating on IMDb. Um, for context, our NTIRL episodes from last podcast season uh involved the show's, what is it? Pirate Gold on Adak Island
Mhm.
and Lost Gold of the Aztecs. This show, Curse of Oak Island, has a higher IMDb rating than both of those.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, should we quickly overview the key players so that we can eventually say first names and people will generally have an idea of who we're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, we gotta start with the main 2, right?
Mhm. Yeah, the brothers. So our main protagonists are brothers Rick and Marty Lagina. Rick was a postal service employee. He's now retired. He learned about Oak Island and this legend that we'll overview for you at around 11 years old. So this is very Ben Gates coded.
Yeah. Rick is uh Rick is a cute one if you think about, like, 11 years old. That's like, okay, come on, bro. You're dedicated.
I can't wait to hear which brother you like better because I have like a distinct feeling of which brother I like better. The
Same.
the The other brother is Marty. He was like an oil and gas entrepreneur, so he's like the financier of this hunt. He has invested millions into the hunt, which predominantly surrounds a literal pit at Oak Island, where people have been digging for forever. Um, I guess he's rich enough that he bought a controlling interest in the corporation that owns this little island so he can kind of do whatever he wants there. So they're the two main guys.
Mhm.
I would almost argue that all the other guys are so much less significant that we almost don't have to mention them.
I mean, yeah, they're not that memorable.
We can at least speed through them, right? I guess the ones that appear the most in these 2 seasons, we have Craig Tester. He's Marty's business partner. He's there to provide drilling expertise, right? They're oil and gas guys, so like if someone's going to know how to drill, it's them. Um then there's the Blankenships. This we mostly see Dave, who is the son of Dan. Dan dug a really important treasure hunting pit called 10X adjacent to the original Oak Island money pit. We'll call it the pit, money pit, whatever, same thing. Um, so he dug this original pit many, many years ago, trying to avoid a flooding issue that diggers of the regular pit have. He could not avoid that issue. Dave is the son. Dave is rather old, so you can imagine how old his father Dan is in this show.
I got Dave and Dan confused
I
for a
mean,
little while in the beginning.
I would excuse you because considering their names are essentially the same.
Yeah, I think I thought they were for at least 2 episodes.
Oh my gosh. Well, see, the bummer is, in my personal opinion, that I can't stand Dave, but I do like Dan. So it is unfortunate that the younger Dave features much more prominently in the show just because he is able to because of his age.
Yeah, he's able to, like, do things.
Um, The thing that ticked me off about Dave the most is literally every time he talks on this show, literally every time he talks on this show, he's complaining about either wanting a drink or wanting money. Like, he's so
Mm.
cynical and obnoxious.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
didn't feel strongly about Dave. I felt
Considering
strongly about some other people.
considering you thought Dave and Dan were the same person, I'm glad you didn't feel strongly. Um There are literally a bunch of other people who pass in and out of the show, you guys. The ones that I'll mention just because I could see us potentially saying their names later. You have Charles Barkhouse, who's an Oak Island historian and a Freemason. You have Jack Begley, who is Craig, the business partner's son. He's like a brute workforce helper. He mostly disappeared after season 1, I think. But he was all over the place in season 1. I don't know, y'all. Then we have Alex Lagina, who is Marty's son. He's a trained diver, giving me Chad vibes from
Mhm.
Blind Frog Ranch.
Definitely, definitely.
So he's in and out. And then a few others, but they're even less consistent, so I'm just not even going to bother. Fair?
Sounds good.
Guys, we're
Let's, like,
trying.
get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it because there's so much to talk about here. I feel like in order to start our review, we really have to start with the legend underpinning this treasure hunt, especially if we might invest additional NTIRL episodes into the hunt, right? We need to know what we're getting into here. And this legend is complex and extremely National Treasure coded.
To me, it is National Treasure 2 coded because of the complexity.
I should have seen that
When I
coming.
tell you, like, I needed the little beginning parts of the episode to understand what was going on, like, I didn't skip them, was
Mm-hmm.
thankful they were there,
Yeah.
still could not fully explain this, so I'm looking forward to hearing you do so.
So here's the thing. As someone who dabbles in the docuseries genre, I've seen enough of these style of shows now that I recognize in the very beginning they have a sense of what they're going for, but because the outcome is so undefined and they don't know if they'll ever find anything, they need to like start several threads to see if any of them is going to stick. And so I do suspect that if we were to get to like season 8, they would have really narrowed down the direction that they're going with this legend because the reason you're so confused, Em, is there's like 4 or 6 different legends proposed for like what's here. But they all kind of start in the same place. So the history here is that 200 years ago in 1795, people on Oak Island, which is in Nova Scotia, so we're talking Canada, you guys, they find man-made planks buried in the ground at least 20 feet deep. So it's suspicious enough that others come in and they keep digging and they start finding these oak planks in like layers or platform type structures every 10 feet as you go down into the pit. Did you watch this show? I'm watching your face and it's like this is the first time you're hearing this.
No, I did. I just had a really dumb realization. Is
Care to
it
share?
called Oak Island because of the oak planks?
And the oak trees, yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Ooh.
Oh, I
Okay, well,
okay.
yeah, definitely. That's why it's called Oak Island, y'all. Didn't you know?
So, they find these oak platforms in these regular intervals underground that is clearly man-made, right? And then when they get to the 90-foot mark, they find an inscribed stone and a ton of man-made objects, just further confirming this. We will get to like what the stone said later. Um what makes this more confounding and confusing is that there are multiple flood tunnels that lead to the ocean that caused this pit because people had to dig down to create a pit, right, to find these layers. The ocean will flood this pit, even though all nearby wells at similar depth get filled with fresh water, not ocean water, right? So this is an indication that these tunnels were dug out to the ocean. Probably they're not natural. So everyone wants to find the bottom of this pit because clearly someone had to dig real freaking deep to make this a thing. So why would they have done that if they were not putting something important there, is the idea.
That makes so much more sense.
I can't believe you didn't at least get that part because that's like the base level of this show, Em. I will say, for completeness sake, simultaneously, there are theories as to who dug the pit originally and what they put there. So there are ideas that this is the Knights Templar treasure. There are ideas that this is something from Spanish pirates to the New World. There's even a theory that down at the bottom of this pit is the lost manuscripts of Shakespeare. Because as all this history is happening related to this primitive treasure hunt, Oak Island was a haven for pirates like Captain Kidd, who we did talk about earlier this season. Did not intend for that to happen.
Pat on the back, selves.
Look at that.
Selves.
As well as pirates from Spain, Portugal, England, etc. So basically, the questions are who built the structures underground? Why? When? How? No clue.
Can I do it in the voice of the narrator for the show?
Sure.
But who built this? Why? When? How? All are unknowns?
I mean, it's a docuseries narrator. You have a beef?
Yeah. This was the most annoying thing about the show to me, and unfortunately the narrator talks a lot.
Didn't you didn't find the narrator to be like, I thought it was literally the same voice from every other show we've watched.
It felt, I think he talked more in this than I'm used to in the other shows just because of the structure, which we'll get to. But I think I just heard it too much and it felt like every sentence ended with a little like question mark.
Okay. I mean, that's really unfortunate for you. I do wonder if you
Mhm.
did not understand this show because you were trying to block out the narrator who was giving all the context.
No, a lot of times I heard him because he said the same context about 10 times in a row.
And it still didn't help you understand it. Much like National Treasure
Didn't.
2 and here on National Treasure Hunt, you are at least consistent.
I am.
Okay. Um, Considering we have a lot to talk about, maybe we should just like jump right into the difference between the two seasons. So, to me, the season 1 theme, which is again them getting their footing, you got to give a little grace for a season 1 when you don't know what direction you're going to go. To me, the theme was convincing. It was Rick convincing Marty, right? The Ben-ish guy, the 11-year-old once treasure passionate guy, convincing his brother, the guy with the money, as well as the audience, frankly, that there is validity to the theory that, people were on Oak Island before 1795 when that pit was first discovered. So they're looking for things on the property that date from before 1795.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you can make the argument that the first season is not even just Rick trying to convince Marty that there's validity to the theory, but
Mhm.
like trying to convince him to spend his money or more of it.
Sure. Yeah. And then season 2, once once he's done a good enough job of convincing Marty, season 2 to me is like data collection. Like we start collecting, looking for things basically. This Marty calls it the end of the beginning is season 2.
Yeah. I vibe a lot with Marty, I have
I
to say.
hate Marty.
Doesn't surprise me
Wait,
because
wait, wait,
I
wait, wait.
think
No, I lied. I like Marty. Sorry, I my turn. I had a real hard time keeping the brothers separate. I literally had to tell myself, this is like a fun little almost mnemonic thing. You'll appreciate this as a professor. I was like, Marty, Marty, Marty. For some reason, he really reminded me of my PhD advisor, whose name was Andy. So I was like, okay, Marty, Andy, Marty, Andy, Marty, Andy. And I'm still messing it up. I liked Marty. I did not like Rick.
okay, yeah, I thought Rick was like, I don't know. Marty was great. I think
We agree.
he was Riley in many ways. Yeah, he needed to be convinced, Aubrey.
Sure, but I mean, yes. If that's the bar, yes, I agree. You know who else needed to be convinced? Abigail.
Okay, I don't think he's Abigail, respectfully.
I don't think there's a clear
But
parallel for really any of these characters, to be
I
honest.
think he is similar to Riley, and so I vibed with him very much.
I'm shocked. Shocked and in awe that we have the same opinions of like the
Yeah, I thought you would have liked Rick.
No, I actually think he's super insecure in the most annoying way that I think people can be insecure. We'll get there. I'll probably end with that. Let's dive into that 90-foot stone. Because there's some more legend here. We're gonna start seeing people come into the show with different theories, like experts coming in with theories, and it starts with this 90-foot stone. So this is the stone that was inscribed down at the 90-foot mark that was discovered many, many years ago. Now, you might be like, okay, so just like go look at the stone, right? They can't, because it was said that a Freemason took the original stone, which has long been missing.
How convenient was my first thought upon watching this, and then I had to be like, no, get into the story, get into the story. But I can understand why Marty had a little bit of hard time here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't doubt that the stone existed. What I doubt is like where like is there any reason to go looking for it, and therefore is there much of a reason to put much stock in it, because we don't really know what it looked like or said because it doesn't exist anymore. So, supposedly, the markings on this slab, which were discovered in 1804, translated to 40 feet below 2 million pounds are buried. And so that means that everyone who's gone in looking for the bottom of this pit after this was found is they're looking to a target depth of 130 feet, right? 90 plus 40. This is where things get interesting. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on them bringing in external expertise or external theories to see if it's worth pursuing them. One of the people they bring in is a Swedish cryptographer who says that the code on the stone is actually a double cipher. So it does mean that whole 40 feet below thing, but it can also be decoded as at 80 feet guide corn, long, narrow C inlet. F, like hyphen F, which presumably, I don't remember why, means Francis Bacon. F is Francis.
I have conflicting thoughts about the people that they bring in, because I think bringing in so many different people was like nice. It kept things moving, but
Mm-hmm.
it also contributed to my confusion and also made it seem like they didn't really know what they were doing when they started kind of this whole excavation digging project, which then makes it hard to believe.
See that, but I also have respect for it because it's like, well, Marty, if your expertise is in drilling, that's important here. But also, I don't want you coming up with theories about what's there and why. Like, I want you to go to someone who might actually have the answer. So, I do wonder again as the seasons go on, will we get fewer random theories coming in as we coalesce on a direction for this hunt? Now, I will say that as the episodes go on, there are follow-ups to this like corn translation. So, they go to Europe at some point to look at old Templar buildings and churches and things like that, and they find corn in an ancient baptism statue in a French church that dates back to before corn was brought to Europe from America. And like America is where corn originated. So that's pretty sus.
It's sus, yeah. Also to me suggests maybe the statue was made later, even though
It
it says it's ancient.
Sure, it could. I think the idea is they wouldn't be hopefully they wouldn't be presenting that if it was obvious, like if it was well known or a known fact that it was a newer statue. The other thing that's interesting, I mentioned Francis Bacon. There's another theorist we'll talk about shortly that because his theory is relevant to a different part of the hunt, but he also completely separately brought up Francis Bacon. So that was also pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's true, and I do like the Shakespeare dude, so
Okay.
excited to talk about him.
Well, before we get to him, here's another duo that they bring in. Two guys, Pulitzer and Rayford, who are cousins. They get brought in because they found a Mi'kmaq petroglyph that was basically like an eight-sided star. And apparently, this eight-sided star has origins dating back to King Solomon's temple. Which, you know, if we're looking at temporal history of King Solomon's temple and the Mi'kmaq, like how is that happening temporally? And apparently, there's a legend of a Phoenician mariner society traveling from the Holy Land to Nova Scotia with the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail around 580 BC. And language that looks a lot like those inscriptions on the 90-foot stone, as well as what's on Phoenician coins, has been found at each of the Phoenicians' known stops on this, pre-Christ route. Those coins have this eight-pointed star on them, and some of those coins have been found near Nova Scotia.
Yeah, that's fine. That one's a little I think because like you said in the beginning, like, how temporally, right? Like, how are these things coming
That's
together?
how.
I know, but I think, like, that felt very just, like, clunky to get there. It doesn't mean I don't believe it,
Mhm.
but I didn't buy into it as readily. It's not
To
my
me,
favorite of the theories.
know exactly what to believe because we have to take these people at face value. We're not doing the research ourselves, obviously. But to me, there's few things can be more compelling than a paper trail. And if these coins that really do date back to that time are found in all of these places along this apparent route, I find that pretty compelling. I have to trust you that you're not lying when you say they've been found in Nova Scotia. But if you are not lying, that's crazy. And
Yeah.
by that theory, the Knights Templar, if they were the ones that were like digging the pit, around the pit, whatever, they were there looking for the treasure, not burying a treasure. They were looking for the treasure that this like Phoenician ship had already brought there, you know?
Yeah, like, game-changing if true.
For sure. Literally. I find that many of these shows that we're watching, if anything ever comes out of them, they are like to quote Ben Gates here, but life altering, sir.
Life-altering, sir, but I like the point that you said of if anything ever comes out of them because we're
Mhm.
still waiting.
Absolutely. Okay, so do we want to talk about like major plot arcs, like major finds and stuff?
Yes, please. I have thoughts, but what one do you wanna start with? I feel like I have thoughts on a couple of them, so I might have some thoughts on this one.
I feel like we should end with the actual pits. So let's start with some of the other things that have been found on this island that could lead to a discussion of people having been there in history. Maybe the coconut fibers. Want to start there?
Okay, so yes, let's start with the
Ugh,
coconut fibers.
okay.
Um, uh, cool. The most interesting part to me about the coconut fibers was that they were used, like, their use, essentially.
Mhm.
Not the fact that they were found anywhere, but the fact that the idea was that these coconut fibers were used to cover, like, tunnels, basically, that could drain liquid to ensure that sand didn't clog them.
Mhm.
Um, just because I, like, didn't know coconut fiber did that, and, like, we got
Mhm.
to see a biologist and look with a scanning electron microscope and, it's cool.
So to me, the coconut fibers, I started out, I hated this at the beginning. And then I grew to like it. Because number one, I was like, why is this relevant? They didn't actually explain what you just explained until a little ways
It did,
in.
yeah.
And so, first of all, I was like, if they're as old as you want them to be, shouldn't they have like disintegrated by now? But,
Yeah. But
but,
no.
so, okay, let's also give context here for those who haven't watched yet and are deciding if they want to. So there's a obviously
Coconuts.
there actually aren't coconuts, but
I know, it's really disappointing, actually.
so it's an island, you guys, right? So there are a variety of beaches and coves. There's one cove called Smith's Cove, where at one point in time, um, there people had a suspicion, or they knew there were like some of these drainage tunnels led out into Smith's Cove. So they're searching at Smith's Cove, and about 2 feet underground on the beach, they find coconut fibers buried. And the closest coconut source to Nova Scotia is the Caribbean. So the question becomes, is this evidence of pirates, right? Because they frequented the Caribbean, right? Famously.
My
Um,
god.
could it be rooted or related to the Knights Templar somehow? But the big question is, can these fibers be dated? And this is where they got me finally, is that they did do scientific analysis on these, and they said the scientists that they employed said there's a 95% chance that these fibers are from between 1260 and 1400 AD, which is perfect temporal consistency with this whole Knights Templar theory.
It's true, yeah. I don't that's cool. I think for me, the finding out they were coconut fibers was more exciting because, well, because I understand that science, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't understand the science as much of how they date
I'm
the coconut
assuming it's like a
fibers.
carbon dating type of thing,
Probably,
right?
but I don't do that.
Well,
You know what I do? Use microscopes.
my God. Okay, fair enough. Um, for consistency and like completeness sake, around the cove and in the woods and different places, they will also end up finding some coins, like old Spanish coins. Even at one point, they find a coin that has a Templar cross on it, but we don't actually get into the coins a ton. So I don't even want to. Do you want to move to a different like plot arc, which is the swamp?
Yes. Okay, so the quamp.
Yeah,
I
the
might keep
qualm.
that. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
do
keep
it.
that. The swamp was low key really cool to me. At first, I was like, they keep saying the words drain the swamp. Um which was really distracting. Um
But they literally meant draining a swamp, a
they
literal
did.
swamp.
They did. Unfortunately, they spent a lot of time trying to do that. And my big qualm here, and I don't know how you feel about this,
Okay.
was that I feel like there was an easier way to go about the swamp searching situation, at least once they had a little bit more information.
Yeah, so once again, we need to provide context to our listeners
I know,
here.
that's why I paused.
Oh, you're incapable of giving context, I
I'm allowing
understand.
you to provide the context, and then when you get to the point where they felt the thing under the liquid in the swamp, I'll talk.
Okay, great. I don't know if I'm gonna get to that point, so you'll just jump in. Guys, there's a swamp on Oak Island, and
FYI.
it might be man-made. Okay. And if it's man-made, there's a theory that says, could it be like have been put there to hide whatever this treasure is? In which case, the money pit might just be some kind of diversion or something else. Um, to me, I was kind of like, I didn't buy this at all until I was told like one time, and then they never brought it up again, even though I think it's like the most important thing. There are oak tree stumps like sunken, not sunken, like they're in the ground. They're rooted in the ground in the swamp, fully covered. All right. Oaks cannot live in water, you guys. So the idea is the oak trees were there first. Also, by the way, oak trees are not native to this island. That is something that is relevant to this as well. But like the idea is the oak trees were there first, and then someone turned this into a swamp, so the oak trees were cut down, right? Um, so to explore this idea that there could be treasure in the swamp, they need to start like scanning the swamp, seeing if there's stuff underneath it. The swamp is big, so like they need a direction to go.
Mhm.
You look
I
like you're
mean,
gonna explode.
I just wanna say my thing, but it isn't it's not really related. Okay. It's not it's not directly tied to the Shakespeare dude's theory.
I haven't brought that up yet. Go for
I
it.
know, but I know you're going to. So, basically, at a certain point, they bring in these metal detectors. They're, like, looking in the swamp with the metal detectors. I guess not looking. They send a diver in, right, into the
Yeah,
swamp, which, like, really
crazy.
cool, because couldn't see anything, and all I could keep thinking was, "This is probably how Ben felt when he was in the Hudson, because nothing is visible in the Hudson, sir."
Yeah.
And, they found basically this, like, hard surface, and they kind
Mhm.
of found, like basically, they went and stood on it, okay, which seems risky in a swamp. They clearly knew that this was an area that they wanted to look at, and they were able to kind of tell the shape of it. Please tell me why they tried to well, I know why they had to do this. So they had to drain the swamp uphill because they had, like, signed on to some, like, environmental thing that said that they couldn't just dump it all in the ocean.
There are permits involved to do something like this, you guys, that is what she is referring to.
Yeah, but, like, I forget who it was. Whoever was saying they couldn't just dump it into the ocean seemed kind of annoyed by that, and I wanted to be like, feel like that's an okay thing." Um, so they basically had to pump the swamp as they were draining it, like, up, and it did not go well, unsurprisingly. Why then, when they found this, like, surface, right, that was, like, hard, that was metal detector worked on for, like, a hot second, whatever, could they not take, like, giant planks or something and stick them in around the sides to create a little, like not little, but a box,
They
and then
started
take the liquid out from the inside?
they started that, but they never actually manifested it. Remember they brought that big thing that I guess the Blankenships had made at one point, and they, like,
Yeah,
toted it over.
like, I feel like they could have done it a lot sooner.
Sure, I don't know if we ever saw them even use it, but the intention is there.
That's
Maybe
the
they'll
thing.
maybe they'll use it in season 3.
Well, I haven't watched season 3 yet.
Well, you will later this season. So what I personally don't love the swamp. I find the swamp to be like a waste. I'm thinking back to like Blind Frog Ranch and the things that they keep going back to that are so fruitless. This to me is the swamp. Um the one theorist that they do bring in, this is the Shakespeare guy that you alluded to. This guy believes that Shakespeare hid codes to Oak Island in his writings, and if you to be honest, it sounds like the guy's theory is well researched. I don't know Shakespeare well enough, and I also like they went through the theory very quickly. Like a lot of things were flashing on screen. If I wanted to, I could have paused. If this were Oak Island Hunt, I we would have paused and gone step by step. So it's I don't know. I don't want to judge the theory, but if you believe the guy, the decoding that he does points them towards a specific point in the swamp called that they're calling Mercy Point. Basically, it to summarize the way the theory works is that the money pit, right, has these 9 platforms and those are replicating the 9 chambers beneath King Solomon's temple. So they're looking for a final chamber called the Enochian chamber, and it
Mhm.
needs to be 996 feet west of the money pit, which places them in the swamp. This is per, I think, a researcher in Scotland. I don't know.
It was, and you know why? Because when I heard that, my ears perked up. Um, but no, I mean, to me, this felt I think because we're using, like, Shakespeare, right? This felt very National Treasure-esque to me in, like, the context of, like, ciphers and stuff like that, and it was a cipher that, like, we had access to, right? Whereas, like, the one on the stone from earlier, we're just trusting that it was there because no
Right,
pictures were like, we're just
right.
trusting that somebody saw that. I don't know how this dude, developed this theory, but
Mhm.
it doesn't seem terrible.
Wish I wish they went through it slower because it's the type of thing I would really like to understand to decide if I buy it kinda thing.
Yeah.
Um, but to me, what annoys me about the swamp is why are we not just searching the mercy point relentlessly until we're convinced there's nothing in that specific point before moving on to other parts of the swamp?
Because they're trying to drain it, the whole thing.
Seems unnecessary. Shall we get to the actual, like, almost namesake of this island, right? The money pit.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like this that much.
Okay.
I know. Aubrey
So
doesn't like that.
I have no opinions as to whether or not you like the money pit. My issue with the money pit is, and this is something I didn't walk into the show knowing, so it bothered me. It could have been something that I knew if I looked it up beforehand. To excavate the money pit, they need to find the money pit. And I was like, how is that possible? This is a huge theory and it has been for like centuries. Sorry, I'm, like, aghast because in part because I watched this 4 months ago when we were supposed
Yeah,
to watch this,
we
and I
did the
don't
prep a
remember
while back.
the details, but I remember being extremely frustrated because, like, so many people over these centuries have come to the island to try to find this, but also, like, doing brute force trying to get into the ground that they've, like, exploded all the ground, and so no one actually knows where the original pit was located anymore.
Yeah, this feels like a treasure hunter, like, no-no.
For
Like
sure.
or, like, if you're gonna explode the ground, right? Like, do it till you find it. Because, like, then you're just like, it reminds me of what happened at was it Adak? Where that, like, all the dirt had been moved,
Yeah,
and so they had to, like, look in a different area, like, this screamed that to me.
yeah,
It was
100%,
just
and
it felt, like, not respectful of the past hunters.
what do you know? It feels like the past hunters were not respectful of, like, the origins of this because it was the old past hunters that did the exploding. I was just gonna say, I
Yeah.
don't really blame Rick and Marty for having to do this because it's not their fault. They need to try to find it, and how are they gonna find it? So they're, like, drilling some test holes. I just gotta say, drilling is my least favorite part of these shows. I find it boring. Also, it's usually fairly ill-informed, and it's rarely actually successful. Somehow they find it, though.
Good for them.
They
Magic.
this was or we think they found it. It gets confusing because I got real excited. They drill a hole where they one of the places they think it might be. They pull up a core sample, and at 140 feet, which is like near this target depth, right? They pull out layers of like worked wood as well as like a concrete material. So again, not natural. And this is in accordance with what some treasure hunters back in 1897 reported finding, called the chapel vault. It was like there's this giant wood box or structure underground. So they're looking for this chapel vault because it was like part of or near the money pit.
Mm. What don't you so you said, like, you were confused, right? Like, why?
I was disappointed. I was
Disappointed, okay.
disappointed because they do date the wood. Again, we love the science. We like trying to make this as legit as
Mhm.
possible. They date the wood and it dates from between 1690 and 1900. So it
Boo.
and they don't know if it's like original stuff that was put down there, let's say in 1690, or if it was a material left there by treasure hunters of the past. And even if it is 1690, it doesn't get them anywhere near the age of the coconut fibers, right? And if all of this is connected, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I do think it's really hard to, dismiss the idea that it's something that was just left from other
Yeah.
treasure hunters. Um, which then just, in my opinion, then continues to make me just question, like, everything that's happening.
I don't think we should question everything that's happening because they're not like going and trying to fake us out and say, look, this box is actually from 1400. Like they're doing the work and saying, all right, there goes that idea. Like we didn't actually find the spot we were looking for. Um, what I do want to say though, to bring the national treasure in here, this idea or this legend of this bottomless quote unquote money pit, which I don't know if we've ever clarified. It's called the money pit because people have been figuratively pouring money into it for many, many, many years trying to excavate it. Um, I wanna try to analogize it to the Parkington Lane pit
Mm.
because the Parkington Lane pit holds the Templar treasure, and the leading theory for Oak Island is that the money pit holds the Templar treasure. So I
Mhm.
was watching this and had this massive, like, in my face moment of like, "Oh my god, was the Parkington Lane pit in National Treasure, like, as a concept, as the design that we see in the movie, was that inspired by the money pit?"
Ah, maybe.
I mean, the screenwriters clearly knew about this theory of the Knights Templar having been in Nova Scotia because that's the origin point for, like, the movie's story that the Knights Templar brought the treasure to the New World. So if they know that, they've at least heard of the money pit before.
That's true. Yeah, and I guess it would be an original enough kind of, like, spin on it in a way because there's, like, structures, and then also, like, to kind of your point about, like, it's called the money pit, right? Because people are, like, pouring money into it, like, nobody's really doing that with Parkington Lane, right? Because nobody knows that it's there.
Sure.
The money is being poured elsewhere.
Sure. I don't know. I just think to me this is the answer is yes, and we haven't confirmed it with anyone. I just think the similarities, the concept of the Templar treasure being buried in this massive pit after being brought to the New World, the similarity is way too striking for that to be a coincidence, I think. Um
Sounds like we have to add that to our question list.
for John and the Wibbs and stuff.
Mhm.
We're almost at time. So maybe we can start wrapping this. I don't think we need to talk about the 10x pit.
It's pretty similar to all the other pits, to be honest, and
Yeah.
by that I mean all the other shows.
True. That's a really good point. There's like a near death experience, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Maybe let's talk just about the characters maybe a little bit because we haven't really talked about them since the beginning. I want to explain my issue with Rick.
Okay.
Um, but also I'd like for us to talk a little bit about how they are similar or different than our National Treasure characters. Rick is described by others in the show as a romantic with like a deep sense of right and wrong. And Marty is portrayed as the skeptic. He's not sure if this is a good business investment. But the two of them together, while Marty is more motivated than by like, recouping his investment and Rick is just trying to do something cool, right? Find the Templar treasure. This is about a family pursuit and them doing something together as brothers.
Yeah, I will say that it was I found it very touching that Marty was willing to, like, put as much money into this initially
Yeah.
because it meant that he, like, believed Rick, and even if he thought that Rick, like, was being a little crazy, he
Hmm.
still wanted it to happen
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah. I completely agree. I also think this is why I think Rick and Marty don't have a clear Ben Riley or Riley Ben separation. Um, I think they both have Ben tendencies, and I think they might both have some Riley tendencies. I'm not totally sure. Something struck me um, when Rick says that what draws people to Oak Island is this idea of thinking, I can do what others have failed to do. Like, that's a direct quote of what he says. And that reminds me in many ways of Ben, right? Um, especially at the end of National Treasure when Patrick says, you found what some of the greatest minds in history left behind and you understood the meaning of it, right? Like that's the same vibe to me. So, in many ways, I think Rick is the natural Ben analog, but Rick is not running the show, and that's the problem for making him
Mm.
purely Ben.
Because, like, Marty has the money?
Marty is the one running the show. Maybe because he's funding it. Maybe because he's the voice of reason. He's the one that isn't totally clouded by the legend and his visions of grandeur, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I can definitely see that. I didn't actually look at it that way before, so thank you.
And I have to ask you, did you catch the National Treasure quote in here in the show?
Oh, yeah, yeah, Thomas Edison.
Yeah, and it's Marty who says it. Marty quotes the "I didn't fail. I found X number of ways how not to make a light bulb" in reference to their failures on Oak Island, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy."
Yeah. Um, but, like, accurate, like, if
Mhm.
anything, that shows us there's a reason why that quote was used in National Treasure.
Absolutely. For sure, for sure. Um, and if to wrap up my comparison of the brothers, did you get this vibe? I find that Marty is way more accepting of outsiders' theories. Rick doesn't even want to listen to them. And this is what really turned me off of Rick.
Hmm. I don't think I picked up on it quite as much as that, like, didn't even wanna listen to them, but I do agree that I think I'll say I found it interesting that Marty was so open to hearing what other people had to say, given that, like, he was trying to get Rick to convince him, at least in the first season, that this was a good investment. So he's, like, essentially, like, almost not listening to Rick, like, he's listening to these other people and
Yeah.
taking their word for it.
And I think that's because Rick is a little too steadfast. He's a little too set in his ways and he is not willing to he is literally the vibe I got, the what I wrote in my notes was literally Rick is threatened by the Norwegian guy, by Pulitzer and Rayford. He is rude to them, to the
Mhm.
cousins. He's rude to the cousins. And to me, this is why he can't be Ben first and foremost. He lacks Ben's confidence.
Mm.
You don't get threatened like that if you are confident in your theory.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the issue is he doesn't know what his theory is.
Which is why
He doesn't really have one.
he should be welcoming of hearing other people's theories so he can steal one of them, frankly.
Right. Like, he's just looking to, if anything, he's kind of like Ian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's just
100%.
looking to find the treasure. Like, it's. So, can I, while we're kind of on this character thing, can I tell you what my, like, big revelation about this show and others like it was?
I'm dying to hear. Yes.
So, I realize that I think, and I don't have a specific character for this, but I think like the show as a whole is kind of what we would see if we got a prequel National Treasure film, right?
Because of
I'm
the
sure it would be more like thought out, everything that Ben was doing, but you see a lot of trial and error in
yeah.
these shows, which means that there's a lot of failures or, like you said earlier, disappointments, right? And for all the characters. Um, and so I imagine this is like what Ben was going through right before we knew him. He basically says as much that he's been, looking for the Charlotte for like years and years now. And like, I understand why we can't do this narratively in the film with Ben,
Yeah.
time. It I think something that makes National Treasure really work for me in a way that, like, these shows don't often do is you see all the ridiculous seeming theories pay off, and you don't get to see that with these shows, at least in the same time frame, right? Like, we're 13 seasons in,
Right.
right? There are bits and pieces.
I think movies like National Treasure, Indiana Jones, Uncharted, literally fill in the blank. I think they romanticize treasure hunting
100%, and I think that that's the kind of treasure hunting that I like,
because it's
and
unrealistic. It's
it is
fictional, it's
unrealistic.
fantasy.
It is, and it's because it would've been boring, right, to see that in National Treasure. Also would've, to be honest, made me less confident in Ben's abilities because he would be trying and failing so many times, right? Like, there's something to be said for he tried and then didn't fail in National Treasure. You don't really see him fail.
Right, but he failed so many times in the lead up to the Charlotte. But, okay, I get what you're saying. I don't agree, I get it. But my counterpoint to you is then why were you and I, like, why were we both so thrilled to make the connection to the map of Mount Vernon and how that was owned by an enslaved woman named Charlotte, and so it was clear that was an old Charlotte lead that was followed up on and, proven false. We liked that. We were like, "Oh, here's evidence of what the hunt looked like before National Treasure." How can you like that but not want to know that he actually had to go through a process to get to the end?
Because I didn't have to watch it.
Oh my god. Okay.
I didn't live it, right? Like, if anything, I think these shows make me understand Riley more than I did previously. And I realize that seems like it's out of left field, but it's because Riley seems, like, annoyed every time that there's another clue that, like, it's not like we just found the treasure, right? It's like, "It's another clue, we gotta do the next thing," right? And that feels like what's happening in this show, in all of these shows really, is they find another clue. It's not quite as linear.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
going in all different
Yep.
directions, but, like, I feel like I am Riley in this case. Like, I would basically be like, "Yeah, no, we just another clue, I don't think it means anything."
Fascinating. To me, I think that seeing the process makes it more impressive when we do learn something, right? And it gives me more confidence in why we went one direction and not the other. And it feels more like the scientific method in a way. You have a hypothesis, you test it. Usually it doesn't work out the first time. So you have a new one, you test it. Probably doesn't work out either. So you find another one, you test it. It feels more scientific to me. So I kind of appreciate it. I mean, you are Riley through and through, so there is that. We do have to wrap up though, so do we wanna go through our final ratings and recommendations for our listeners? Do you wanna go first, Em? The Curse of Oak Island seasons 1 and 2, what is your assessment?
4 out of 10 oak trees.
Okay.
I think the history is interesting to me, but it gets lost in the structure of the show, which we've talked about already. Um, I think this is some of this history is stuff that I would rather read than watch happen.
Hmm,
Because I think it just
sure.
is laid out a little more clearly that way. Bringing in all the different theories made things feel to me like less intentional, right? Which I personally, as I just alluded to, don't really like in a treasure hunt. I will say that I did appreciate that they did a good job of following the science when they could, because, like, we love that, but because they had so many different leads and, like, theories, it honestly just felt a little all over the place for me. I'll be interested to see if the rating changes in future seasons, if we watch more.
Okay. Well, we are, so good luck. Um, so do you think National Treasure fans should give it a shot?
I don't think it's necessary. I think you could probably read the description of it and get the history, but, I mean, if you're looking for kind of a prequel, National Treasure vibe type thing, sure. What about you?
I give this show 6.5 out of 10 boreholes. I don't know how you make half a borehole, but in this case, you get one. I think that the story underpinning this whole search is more interesting than the actual process of the search. Oddly enough, my favorite part was listening to the various researchers to share their theories. Some of them are more or less compelling, some of them are more or less likely, but I liked hearing the different theories. I found the show, if people are looking for a reference point, I found it very comparable to Blind Frog Ranch, right? Like the characters, the protagonists own the land. They are investing their money into the search. They're not totally sure what they're looking for. And I do disagree with you. I think whether you enjoy this type of show or not, I think this is a must watch for National Treasure fans, if only to truly understand the new world component of the Templar treasure legend that the National Treasure writers clearly utilized. So I'm actually even more impressed by and like into National Treasure's legend story after watching this.
Awesome. Well, I mean, thanks for chatting about it, Aubrey.
Yeah,
I think it was a good time.
as always, I enjoy recording these episodes because I think they result in at least some fun, if exasperated at times, discussion.
Yes, and if you choose to watch the Curse of Oak Island seasons 1 and 2 to be
Mm.
specific, let us know your thoughts. Let us know, if you agree with our analysis here and if there's anything that you wish we talked about that we'd missed. Please also go ahead and leave us a rating and review before you exit out of your podcasting platform. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe.
Please do. Um, as I just kind of mentioned, we are going to do our second season 12 NTIRL on seasons 3 and 4 of The Curse of Oak Island to see if it finds its footing. To see if Emily's rating increases or decreases. I think it'll be really interesting to see if they find a direction for the theory that they're pursuing, or if we learn new theories that they will then test. So that I would normally say that that is coming in the latter half of this podcast season, but we're already in the latter half of this podcast season.
It's coming in the latter part of the
Mhm.
podcast season.
Yep. So if you want to watch along, go ahead and watch seasons 3 and 4 of The Curse of Oak Island in the next couple of weeks because literally your other IRL episode for the season is coming that soon. Until then, I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Emily.
and thank you so much for joining us on our National Treasure Hunt.